Hello, hello, hello. Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to Mastering in the Box and welcome to this impromptu live stream. Just getting the last little bits of the OBS all set up, so I'll be with you in just 1 second. How is everyone doing? Hope everyone's keeping well. Okay. Fantastic. So I hope you can all hear me well. I had a few challenges with the old sound in the last one, so hopefully you guys can all hear me there. Fantastic. So I've got some viewers showing there. Great. And just go back to that screen there, go back to OBS. Oh blimey, live stream is so much technology involved, it does my head in. How are we all? Hope you're all keeping well. So this week I was looking at doing a video which was going to be, I'm actually basically planning on doing a new series based on Mastering in the Studio 1.5. So last time I did a Mastering in the Studio 1.5 video, it was very well received. Lots of people want to know how to use Studio One in the best way for mastering, and obviously over the past year my workflow's developed, so there's lots now in which I use both the song page and the project page for. So I'm going to be devising a short mini series, probably 3 different videos going over mastering in Studio 1.5, but I didn't want to rush it. I thought to myself, this week I was searching on the TBProAudio website and noticed they've released this fantastic saturation plugin. I haven't really had a chance to play with it too much yet, but it's called the GSatPlus, and we'll take a bit of a more in-depth look at that in a moment. So we're going to go into Studio One. I've already got a song loaded up. We're going to do a little bit of just some basic mastering before we apply the saturation and look to see what the plugin does, and then secondly how we can use it in the mastering context. So we can go on to that a little bit in a second. So hopefully you can all hear me now. OBS is showing that the signal there is quite good. So if you can't hear me, or if someone can just let me know in the comments, that'd be great, just so I know that you guys can all hear fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly flip the screen here, go into the DAW mode. I'm just going to keep the OBS screen here, and what I just want to do is play a little bit of the audio. Okay, let me just quickly get this set up because it doesn't look like you can hear that. Okay, if I change that to... Fantastic, thanks Neil. I'm just making sure just want to get the DAW audio playing. Give us 2 seconds. Can you let me know if you can hear this? Playing now. No door sound. Okay. Let's add. Input, create new. Okay. Does it need to be set to release audio device in the background? I think it already is. The issue is it's OBS. There's no feed, so it's this door input here. What I'll do, let's do it the old-fashioned way. If I change this from the Motu, it's got a loop back, so it shouldn't really cause an issue. But if I do the voice meter. UMC Motu. Oh, crikey. Okay. Let's try it. Let's try it. In 1, 2. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do, let's just do loop back, apply, okay. And then this, if I just, I'm going to take that out for a second. Right. Now I've changed the release audio device in the background. Let's do that. Apply. Okay, get back to song. As it slips away faster than before, you're chasing a dream, you decide to fly, spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone? Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. So yeah, so the old loop back, I've put it on mix, so it's going to pick up the microphone, it's going to pick up the door on the same channel, but that's fine, we can live with that. So we have sound. Okay, let's come back out of here, let's go back into here, and let's quickly transition. So fantastic. So thank you everyone for joining. As I say, we're going to go through the great plugin by TBProAudio, and the plugin is called the GSatPlus 2. And effectively, this plugin is the saturation element of one of their channel strips. And if we go over to the browser, and if I then transition here, you should be able to see this page here. So it's the GSatPlus, it's a saturation plugin, and this is 100% free. So head on over TBProAudio.de products, and it's GSatPlus. And effectively, as it says here, it was derived from the saturation module on the CS5501V2. But it was something that they've kind of done in conjunction with the team over at Gearspace.com. Now, I don't personally use Gearspace, but for those of you who do, you may know a little bit about this. So they've come back with some feedback, and they've really kind of focused the plugin around that. So we have lots of different features here. We've got, say, clip protection, VU meters, which I know a lot of people like the VU meters, some signal monitoring. So we can do things like, we can put it in stereo, left, right, mono, stereo, lots of different ways to change the signal flow there. Oversampling, which is fantastic. So if you're going to do any form of saturation, you really want to try and look into oversampling. When it comes to saturation and distortion, you do run the risk of aliasing, so oversampling really kind of helps with any kind of aliasing issues you may have. Plugin bypass, preset management, blah, 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 blah. Very efficient CPU usage design. So it looks great, and it's absolutely free. And if it's anything to go by some of their other plugins, this should be absolutely fantastic. So I love the ABLM. They've now introduced an ABLM2, so check that one out. That's a great plugin. I use the DP Meter 5, I think it is now, and if I look on the meter here we are, DP Meter 5. So this is a great tool here. This is a loudness meter from TBProAudio, and it's once again free. And the thing I love about this is you can do all sorts. So you can do lots of different. This one is set for LUFS, but you can do. If we was to go EBU R128. Hang on a second. Let me quickly go back because you obviously can't see this. Go to door capture. Go to transition. Let's take that out. So this is the DP Meter 5, and you've got lots of different ways you can do it. So you've got obviously the RMS and your peak and your crest factors. I normally use it in the LUFS EBU R128, but you can do lots of different ones. So just the loudness units rather than the relative full scale, the -20, and so on, 16, 14s, 12s, all sorts. So it's really great, and once again, this is free. So if you want to get a loudness meter, very reliable. I love this. One of the things I really like about this as well is the fact that when it comes to your short-term max, your true peak max, and your momentary loudness max, it holds the measure. So it will always tell you what your maximum level is. So it will, once it hits that max, it will hold that figure until a new max is set, and it kind of continually holds that figure, which is great. So if you, rather than kind of like eyeballing the momentary loudness, for example, you've got a true maximum figure there, which is really kind of give you some accurate readings, which I love. So that's great. In terms of the song we've got here is Spread Your Wings by Nick Graveswell. This is a song I mastered a couple of years ago now. Fantastic song, really love this. This is the unmastered version. Check Nick out on Spotify, Nick Graveswell. I'll drop a link in the description later on, so if anyone wants to check him out, look out for that. And it's a great song. I haven't done any mastering to this except for some limiting. I've just put a basic limiter on there. There's 4 dBs worth of gain, ceiling the -1.3, threshold is 0. So the threshold is 0 because I don't want any additional compression over than what the limiter is doing by pushing the gain into the ceiling. Nick says TBProAudio also offers a free VU meter. Yes, they do. So I think they're great. I really like the one. I'll tell you what. There's a plugin. Let's quickly go back. I'm going to go over to. If we go back to the TBProAudio website, there's a great plugin here as well. I really like the look of it. I really want to get these DSEQs, these dynamic spectral equalizers. These look fantastic. I really like the look of those. this one, I really want to get the upgraded meter, the DP Meter XT, which is obviously it's the bigger brother of the DP Meter. That looks really good. Lots of different things. You've obviously got the visuals on there as well. And then let's have a quick look. Here we are, MV Meter 2. I think that's the one that you're talking about there, Nick. MV Meter 2. Once again, it's free. I've got some other free plugins here. So you've got a linear phase tilt filter, a mix monitoring tool, but they do some really, really good ones. So the DP Meter XT is one that I certainly want to check out. And the other, there was another ABLM. They've got the second iteration of that now. That's something I really want to check out as well. Maybe it was the LAX Limit. Could be this one. It certainly, yeah, it might be this one. So it's an advanced look ahead wideband link stereo limiter, including intersample peak detection and oversampling. That looks really good. So you've got adaptive release, delta, monitor delta, clip, hard clip. So it gives you good readings here on your character, transients, release, your dynamics. Got your oversampling there, input, output, gain reduction. Your mode in RMS, obviously you can change your mode on that. That looks really, really good. So that's another one I'm going to check out. But I digress. Let's have a look. Let's go back to the DAW capture, and if I then transition here, let's go back to Studio One. So as I say, this particular track, it's by Nick Graveswell. Let's take a brief listen. Okay, great track. I love this one. Let's just going to go through and just do a few moves. Not going to do too much in terms of other processing. I really want to focus on the saturation, but I just want to quickly go through and have a look at. In fact, I'm not even going to do any compression for the time being, and I'll explain why in a second. Let's have a look at the Pro EQ, and a little bit of honkiness in there. So one of the things I noticed was that those guitars are really kind of that low mid-range focus. So if we play a little bit again, I'm probably looking around about that 600 to 700 hertz range. Okay, I mean, we might want to do a little bit more, just take a little bit more out, but it just kind of cleans up that real kind of that honkiness from those guitars in there. Then it's really just a case of going through and just having a bit of a feel. I really like the way that it was mixed. I felt it was really good mix. There wasn't really kind of anything too drastic. I felt originally when I did the original master. take out some of that honkiness. I really want to now listen to a lot of the problem areas I find when it comes to this type of music are going to be that correlation between the kick, bass and the low end of the guitars. So let's take a little bit of a listen now. I'm really going to focus in around say between that 100 to 300 hertz range. Let's just see if anything can be cleaned up there. Okay, so the way I'm going to approach this is rather than do, I don't want to put a low cut in there. Let's have a look at a low frequency. Let's put a small shelf, and let's do, I don't want it as high as 110. Let's do it, just want to try and boost the kick. Maybe let's go down, let's do 65 hertz. Let's take a listen to that. Time as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you're without a pride. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone? Okay, now for me, it's here in the mid-range set of band filters, cuts everything up to about 400 hertz, roll off everything from 20 hertz to about 6k, makes it easier to hear. Yeah, hear the kids. Yes, makes it easier to hear the kids. Although they make plenty of noise upstairs anyway, so no worries there. So one of the things that I'm really focusing on, I want to try to give the kick a little bit more emphasis. But there's a bit of there's certainly some masking of frequencies between the kick and the bass. Now, one of the things which might actually sound counterproductive here is actually cutting a little bit around the 100 hertz. Now, this is where a lot of the low end of the bass sits. So certainly when you're mixing, you want to kind of get that correlation between the kick and the bass. You quite often look to boost around 60 hertz and cut everything below 60 on the bass. So you take all of that real low end out on the bass guitar, and you maybe want to kind of emphasize it on the kick. So you kind of, it creates that clearer separation in the low end. But in mastering, sometimes if you kind of get that, you feel it's too masked, actually cutting a little bit around the 100 and then maybe boosting around 200, what that kind of does is, yes, it takes a little bit of that low end away from the bass guitar, but it allows the kick to breathe a bit more. But by adding a little bit more in, say, the 200 hertz range, it adds a bit more attack to the bass. So it kind of takes it from one element, but actually adds it back to another. So let's have a quick look here, see if we can do that. So let's just take another band, take this green band here. I'm going to take this right down, and I'm looking. Let's have a bit of a. Let's just try around about 1.5 dB. I want quite a narrow cue. I don't want too wide a cue here. nice. I like what that's doing there. It's certainly adding that kind of that low end depth that I'm certainly looking for. So let's have a little play again. I'm going to just bypass this in and out just so we can take a listen to what these couple of EQ moves have done. Okay, cool. Let's have a quick look here. So we've got freeview meter, use it quick gain staging, target button makes gain staging really easy, and then we've got the tip there about listening to the mid-range with the band filter, cuts everything up to 400 Hz and roll everything off from 20k to about 6k, makes it easier to hear the mids. Just think about that, Nick. Another great tip, which is going to do something very similar, is you could use the multiband compressor. If you use the multiband compressor, you could then bypass effectively, free out the 4 bands. You could then set your bands for the multiband compressor and then do it that way. So that might be another alternative to really focus on the mids. That was something I covered. I think it was in the referencing, how to reference reference tracks. So that's another good tip there. So that's just a few EQ moves. I don't really want to do too much more. I think with this, it's kind of, there's a lot of refinements I could do, but it's then kind of, I'm probably then looking to do some kind of mid-side EQ, maybe look to maybe freshen up the top of the vocal a little bit, so just maybe add some top end air frequencies to the mid frequencies, and then maybe look at, I could always maybe do one thing that would probably work really well here actually is to do a mid-side EQ on the sides and take a lot of that low end out. So that would also allow the bass to kind of have its own space a bit more. So that's another good tip. If anyone kind of gets to using it or mastering a rock track and you want to take out some of that low end mud, so to speak, you could do a mid-side EQ and take out some of the low end on the sides only, if the guitars are panned out to the sides, that is, which predominantly they are. So that's another good tip there. So let's go to the GSatPlus 2 now. So first and foremost, saturation. How do I use saturation generally in mastering? Very sparingly. I think the thing with saturation is certain plugins I think quite often get overused, and this is where if you start really kind of pushing into your limiter, then start adding a load of compression, a load of saturation on top, it can start sounding very crispy very quickly. So I'd always kind of err on the side of caution when it comes to any saturation in a mastering context. In terms of where to place the saturation is another really kind of, it's something you really need to kind of think about, because a lot of people use the train of thought where they would use saturation at the end. So certainly with your, I know a lot of the mix engineers will use saturation maybe on the master or use it on a bus or something like that, which is a great rule of thumb. However, when it comes to mastering, one of the things we need to understand is when you use saturation and distortion of any type can apply a natural compression. So if you start to add a compressor and then you add saturation after your compressor, then actually you may there run the risk of compressing an already compressed signal. So you've really got to start thinking about what is it you want to achieve with that saturation first and foremost. If it's kind of just almost like a real subtle embellishment, it may not be too much of an issue, but it's something to kind of really bear in mind. So what I've done is I've put a copy of the GSat at the beginning of the chain and at the end of the chain. So on Studio 1 here, you can see the inserts, and it's a copy here and a copy here of the plugin. I'm not going to have them running both at the same time, but we'll have a look to see what it sounds like at the beginning of the chain, and we'll have a look to see what it sounds like at the end of the chain as well. That's the reason why I'm not doing any compression at this particular stage. So we'll have a look, listen to it first and foremost. We'll then see if we need to add any additional compression, and then we can take a look to see what it does at the end of the chain as well. The only other things I'm using here, you see on the master, is just a limiter, and in post I've just got the loudness meter. So that's all we're doing. Very, very bare bones setup here. So let's then go, let's close that, let's close that, and let's close that, and let's have a look at the GSatPlus 2. So it's a really nice looking plugin, scalable. The GUI is scalable, so if anyone out there wants to get it looking slightly bigger, you can do that, not a problem at all. And yeah, I like the analog look of it. As I say, it's taken from their channel strip, so it's the this is obviously the saturation element of the channel strip, but this is more in depth. It's got a lot more features to it. So you've got input, output, and you can put your meters in input and output mode. You have a calibration, which here is set to -18. You've got your monitoring, so stereo, mono, and then you've got these buttons here. If we was to say, let's go through here, let's put that on, so that's on 0, 0, 0, 0, and let's have a bit of a play of the track. So this is your mid and side. And your left and right modes there. You can even go here, so it's really start to add the saturation, and you can do whatever channel mode you want. So you can choose your channel mode just for the purposes of this, as this is kind of like a first look. We'll just leave it in stereo mode. I believe this is going to be like a soft clipping type thing. You can set, so actually no, this is going to be your ceiling. Really cool. So actually let's set that straight away to -1. Oversampling. I'm going to put this on. I'll put it on 4 times. I'm just listening out to the computer fan. My computer is gonna, I think it's basically gonna peg it at some point soon. So if it gets too noisy with the fan, then we might have to reconsider. But I'll put it in 4 times oversampling, and that should help us with any potential aliasing. And this is the bit I really haven't really looked into too much. So you obviously got your bypass, character, you've got 4 modes: clean, warm, crisp, and classic. One thing I have noticed, you put it in classic mode, you lose the opportunity to change the stages and fluctuation and the even. So you've got this odd and even here. But if you put it in clean, warm, crisp mode, then you get full functionality down the bottom here. Okay, so that's a saturation drive for odd harmonics. So this should be the saturation drive for even harmonics. Then we've got the fluctuation here, so that's saturation, fluctuation, and then we've got 5 different stages. Okay, so we've got saturation stages 1 to 5. Okay, let's have a bit of let's just go through and have a bit of a mess around with it. So if we move this to one side here, I'm going to pin that. Let's play the track, turn the saturation off, and then what I'm going to do is try and mess around with the input and output just to see what we kind of get in, what kind of different changes we're getting by balancing the input and output. What's about to come? It ran through your mind a million times before. It seems so easy, it felt so right, you felt so sure. As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. So as I say, if you start to really push the input and if you balance the output, you start to get really crispy pretty quickly. So I think it's you've got to be mindful when you're using any type of saturation. Don't overdo it, but think about the source that you're using as well. Be careful with the character mode, it can get very crispy than anything other than clean. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I tried the classic earlier on. I'll be honest, I wasn't particularly that keen. Certainly, you couldn't push it too hard. Warm, I quite like the stock sound of warm without really kind of doing too much with the input and output. Let's have a bit of a play. I want to try and reduce this down a little bit further.
It seems so easy, it felt so right, you felt so sure. As you chased the
And let's have a bit of a play with the character here.
time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink?
Okay, I'm just I'm going to boost it a little bit more, and then I really want to kind of emphasise this. Like Nick's saying, one of the things you need to be really careful of is when you start messing with the character, it can get really crispy real quickly. So let's just boost this up. So do the plus 10.8, do this to minus 10.8. And let's take another listen, let's mess around with the character again. Let's start with clean.
As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink? You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do?
I think the thing here is really kind of listen for the top end. Like it's saying, it can get really crispy, and what you notice is it's more on the high end where things start to saturate, and you can really hear, yeah, you can really hear it starts to get really crispy in the top end. So if you listen for the top end, that's really where you're going to start to highlight it more.
It seems so easy, it felt so right, you felt so sure. As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly.
So certainly when you put it in side mode, because your sides are more often than not going to have a lot of the high end information, and certainly when you put it into the side mode and you put it into the crisp mode, yeah, you can certainly hear it more certainly saturated than you would do in any of the other settings. So yeah, I think it's really kind of, it's with any of these things, try and think about what it is you're trying to achieve. Now, what I think would be kind of interesting, maybe at some point in the future, is maybe look at how we can apply this to certain particular frequency ranges. So I'm thinking this could be quite good, maybe to put this in mid mode. So maybe use something like the splitter and do the splitter tool and put it on the mids, so we can really kind of emphasize the vocals, the bass, the kick, but it's leaving a lot more of that high end frequency out of it. Let's see if I can quickly set it up now. Let me just quickly see if I can blimey. into here. Splitter. So then drag that. In fact, let's put the splitter at the top. And we want to do if I mute the output on the right, it's been a little bit of time since I started to play around with this. So we need a mix tool in here. We need a mix tool here. We need to go into the mix tool. We need to MS transform. Let's have a quick listen. I've got a funny feeling.
You've ran through your mind a million times before. It seems so easy, it felt so right, you felt so sure. As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly.
Right, so for those who haven't used the splitter tool before, it's a great way of doing it. So you've got to add the mix tool in pre and post the splitter. So you literally click, drag the splitter, and you put a mix tool in before and put a mix tool in after. And in the mix tool, you want to set this to MS transform because it's then going to split it into mid-side mode. But it does a compensation. So what we have to do is, because the mid-side transform, it reduces the volume down by around about 3 dBs. It's slightly more than 3 dBs. But if we then do a 3 dB gain compensation, and then in the second mix tool, we then have to basically do the same again. So put it into MS transform and do another gain boost of 3 dB. And the MS transform thing here, so the MS transform pre the splitter is going to split it into mid-side mode, and then the MS transform post the splitter is going to put it back into standard stereo mode. So let's have another look now. What I'm going to do is go back to the splitter tool and let's see if we can. Now if I go into here, and then we've got the mute the output, so then if I go so that's the sides,
Through your mind a million times before.
and that's your mid mode. Now, the GSatPlus, if I then go back into my saturation and distortion, if I put a copy in, let's quickly go.
Slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink? You're not the first on a left.
So it's clearly not as I said it was. So yeah, so if you got the, if you go into splitter, so that to me, obviously that's going to be your mids, that's going to be your sides. That for me there suggested that that was based on right and right. Clearly that's not, because you can see that the chain's broken. Anyway, go back to what we was doing now. So this is going to be the mids, and we can see it's not broken here. They've bypassed there the sides because we've unmuted, or we muted it here and taken the little tick out of the box. We've got the saturation here, which then we'll play the track.
So sure.
So let's see here.
As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if
But that's a really good way of doing it, actually. I really quite like that. So effectively, yeah, so if you take the splitter and put the splitter in the chain, and then if you split it by your mids and sides, and then what you can effectively do, as I say, is just bypass. You can bypass these sides, put the saturation on the mid frequencies. We've actually boosted quite a bit there, so it's like 10 dB input. We've countered that by the 10 dB on the output. We can put it in clean mode or any of those modes, even at the crisp. It wasn't really kind of starting to distort or saturate the sides too much. So I thought that was a really good way of doing it. So that I think can be really, really useful. So think about that in your mastering context then. If you want to get some saturation, excitement to the vocals and the low end, this could be a really good way of doing it. So use the splitter tool and then maybe just do this on the mid frequencies only. Let's have another quick look. I want to try and have a quick play with the stages. So while we're here, this is still on the mid frequencies only. Let's have a look to see what we can do with the stages and the fluctuation. So like I said earlier on, one of the things with saturation, if you start to saturate too much, it kind of adds this natural compression. And if you listen to the low end, as soon as I put it up, anything over the fluctuation over 50, you'll start to hear that the low end starts to kind of cave in on itself. Take a listen.
That's right, you felt so sure. As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink?
It's great on making that snare pop. That's one of the it's really quite nice for that. So it kind of added not only is it adding obviously that saturated harmonic content, it's just making that snare pop and decay a little bit more. Listen to the snare, and so we'll leave it in bypass and I'll engage the plugin.
Slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink?
I quite like that. I quite like what that's doing now. Let's have a bit of once again, let's have another listen to this. Let's play around with the character and let's go for... Let's try the warm. Now, I'm just a little bit we're going to use this very subtly, because one of the things we've done is obviously we've boosted the low end, so maybe we might want to take the Pro EQ out in a second. So let's go for the warm setting and let's take another listen. Let's put the stages on 1, put the fluctuation back down to 0.
It seems so easy, it felt so right, you felt so
Okay, so let's try that again, and let's go for the crisp.
That's right, you felt so sure. As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink? You're not the first or the last, but it's always just the same. It breaks my heart to think about all the friends we've lost. Sure, as you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. Spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone?
Okay, one of the things I was really looking for there is the just something I was trying to work out in my head. So we've got these different characters. So we've obviously got the clean, the warm, and the crisp. Now the classic is obviously going to be some kind of vintage type based preset. The warm is certainly kind of adding more saturation and harmonic content to the low end. The crisp, certainly to my ear, was certainly focused more on the high end, and the clean, I think, was just more of a natural overall type transparent-ish saturation. So maybe that's kind of a good thought process with this plugin. So if you want to emphasize particular frequency range, so maybe with the crisp more at the high end, warm more with the low end, maybe that's something you can kind of think about with the character settings there. So it's just something just to bear in mind. Now don't forget, the way that we've got this plugin set up at the moment is it's just affecting the mid frequencies only. Okay, okay, so that's fine. Let's go and have another look. Let's take the... Can I just remove... If I just remove the splitter, that should just take the whole lot out. If I take the mix tool out, remove, take that out, remove. I can take that one out, remove. And that should then put us back to where we were originally. Okay, so yes, that's one with there. Okay, now let's have a look at doing this. Let's get rid of that, get rid of that. Let's go back, let's add a little bit of natural compression. Let's take a listen to the saturation after the processing. So let's get our compressor open. I don't want to do too much with this. Let's just get a little bit of... Okay, so before we go on to the next saturation or the next instance of the saturation plugin, already here the compressor, where we're obviously compressing all of the frequencies and where we're using a broadband compressor in this particular instance. Certainly to me, the more sibilant frequencies, the hi-hats and cymbals are very much becoming more present. So this is a particular source where you may want to consider, as I say, going back to the whole saturation piece, how much you want to use after. If you wanted to just get a little bit more of a delicate saturation after, you may be really quite challenged in doing that because of those sibilant frequencies. You could maybe look to do some kind of multi-band after, just to tone some of that high end, and then maybe look to do some kind of saturation in at that point. But let's have a bit of a play around with it. Let's see what we can do. Aidan, Tim, hope you're keeping well. If there's anyone here who hasn't seen Tim's channel, you've got to check it out. Tim Talks Audio, check out his channel. He does some great Studio One tutorials, lots of recording and mixing based tutorials around Studio One, and some more of the other concepts as well. Seriously, check out his channel. Top bloke. Great to have you as part of the live stream. We're just checking out the GSatPlus plugin from TBProAudio. So this is a, for those, if there's anyone here just joining, this is a free plugin, and it's a saturation based plugin, which was something they took from their channel strip and kind of added some additional features and functions too. So we're just going through, this is very much a first impressions type thing, and just seeing how we can use it in a mastering context. So with this particular, with this, we're now using the saturation after. Yeah, I think we've gone we've only really kind of just put the 5 dBs on. Let's kind of push it a little bit further, and let's see really what kind of happens when we kind of really push into the saturation. Interesting. Let's have a bit of a mess around with the character.
the first or the last, but it's always just the same. It breaks my heart, think about.
See, it's interesting. See, this is, I say it's interesting. Actually, if just thinking about it, it's actually probably quite logical what it's doing. This, if you, when we mentioned about the compression element, the saturation, the distortion, this is certainly going to be you're going to see it the most in this particular scenario. So if you put the saturation at the end of your mastering chain, so in between the final plugin and the insert, and in between the limiter, you are going to find that this is going to give you the most natural compression as a result. But it's, I don't know, it's something for me, it's kind of almost having that compressor before the saturation. When we had no compression in at all, and we had the saturation right at the first plugin of the chain, there were certain elements where it felt more unnatural. Having that compressor in there, I think kind of evens out the sound, and then having the saturation after, yes, you can probably hear the overall compression a little bit more, but it doesn't necessarily sound less natural, because I think that the differences in the, obviously in the peaks are slightly less because it's already a compressed signal. So it's just quite an interesting thing to think about. So obviously when you've got less compression going on and you've got that natural compression from the saturation, depending on what kind of character you go for, actually the variances can be quite more apparent, and maybe to some maybe a little bit less natural, because you're going to start, you're having a less even sound, a less compressed sound to start with, and then when you start to apply the saturation, that natural compression, it can maybe sound a little bit less natural. Whereas if you had a compression stage before the saturation, where you're evening out the transients and creating that more even sound going into the saturation, I could notice the level drop a little bit more, but it didn't kind of sound, it didn't sound as less natural, because I suppose that the difference between the transients isn't quite so severe. So it's quite an interesting thing to think about. So maybe if you're using the saturation last, this is very much more where you want to use it as kind of a character type plugin. Then maybe, as I say, it's really kind of lending itself to that. I really want to start to, I'm just wondering, we've pushed here up to 10 in, 10 out. Let's push it a little bit further. I don't want to go too much further because I think we know what's going to happen here. But let's maybe let's go to 15, and then it's 15.6 there. Let's take a listen. And then I want to have a quick look at the odds and evens and see what we can do with that. Okay.
That's right, you felt so sure as you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly, so spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink?
Okay, yeah. I mean, for me, for my ears, that certainly that crisp there was far too much. Let's have a bit of a I liked it somewhere around. Let's go for the 6, and let's have a bit of a play with the saturation drives. I'm going to leave it in clean mode for this. Let's have a bit of a play, see what we can listen to here.
As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly, so spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone?
Yeah, if if you really push that too much. Maybe great for a Kinks guitar sound, not necessarily great for a master.
That's right, you felt so sure. As you chase the time, as it slips away faster than before. You're chasing that dream, you decide to fly. So spread your wings out into the sky. But what would you do if it came crashing down? And what would you think if it was gone in a blink? As you chase the time, as it slips away, time, as it slips away faster than before.
So yeah, just as I thought, when you put it into the last plug in the chain, it's certainly the crisp and the warm certainly affect the low end and the high end. So the warm is very much going to be more low end focused, and the crisp is certainly much more high end focused. And you can really notice it when you start to play with the odd and even harmonics, because it's obviously when you really kind of boost the plugins to the to the max, you can really start to hear that either the low end or the high end is very much being overhyped. Hi King Mail. My mixes are good, but when I master it, the loudness compared to other songs aren't equal. Okay, so master when it. So this is quite an interesting question. So my mixes are good, but when I master it, the loudness compared to other songs aren't equal. Great question. Now, there's so many ways to approach that question. And when it says loudness compared to other songs aren't equal, we really need to kind of take a bit of a step back and think about what we're comparing it to. So if you're comparing it, let's say for example, if you're comparing it to Spotify, a track on Spotify, and you're saying the loudness compared to other songs aren't equal, then there's loads of different ways to approach that. My first initial thought is probably over compression. Now, over compression is, in my opinion, certainly one of the major issues when it comes to getting your track to sound loud. Because if you start to over compress things, now whilst you can get your overall loudness, so when it comes to the loudness normalization and when we come to perceived loudness, one of the things about compression is you are minimizing the gap between the loudest part and the shortest part. So your overall loudness may seem louder, but it's actually not going to be louder because the peak and the trough, you are pushing those closer together. So you are reducing the higher parts, the louder parts, and bringing up the quieter parts. So your perceived loudness you may think it's going to be louder, but it's actually not. Whereas if you're not compressing as much, you can achieve a similar perceived loudness whilst achieving louder parts of the song, because the gap between the peak and the trough is going to be greater. So if you've got something that's over compressed, you are moving the frequencies like that, but if you are effectively under compressing, it's going to come like that. So the quieter parts are going to be quieter than the compressed song, but the louder parts will actually be louder, because that's the way that perceived loudness works. So when you say that the loudness compared to other songs aren't equal, certainly dynamics could be a major consideration. So think about how you're using compression in your mastering. If you're over compressing, that will certainly in the long run make your track sound quieter than other songs. It depends what you're comparing it to. Once again, if you're not comparing it to songs on streaming platforms, then it could just be your end loudness. There are so many trains of thoughts when it comes to how loud a track should be. Some people say it depends on genre. I don't tend to follow that train of thought myself, but You know, there are people out there who will, certainly for EDM, they will, you know, say you have to master to -6 LUFS. I would never master to -6 LUFS, certainly not for the majority of the music that I master. But I think you need to kind of think about what you're comparing it to. And it could even go back to recording, even just recording, and think about how you are, how you're getting that signal into the DAW. If you're starting to apply lots of compression at recording stage, and at your basic mix stage, and then at your master stage, you're effectively going to reduce all your dynamic range, so the end result is not going to sound as loud. Also think about things like automation. Automation can be quite good to get flow in your track. So when you say it's, you know, it's loudness, you know, it's not compared to other songs. Automation can be great, even in mastering. Just maybe a half a dB here or half a dB there, just to give your track extra flow. So if you want to emphasize the volume in the choruses, for example, you can maybe do a slight automation boost in the choruses at the mastering stage. Obviously, you just need to think about your final limiter, and if you're putting too much signal into the limiter to start with, then automation is not really going to help too much. So you've got to think about that as well. Lots of different ways, but if your mixes are sounding good, but when I master it, the loudness compared to other songs aren't equal. Another thing you've got to think about as well is at the mastering stage, how much are you limiting? What's your end result? Because some people, when they go to the mastering stage and they look at the limiter, I think they get scared by the gain reduction, so maybe don't push it that much. So what you actually find is it doesn't sound loud compared to other songs sometimes because it isn't. So we think about get a good loudness meter. We spoke here earlier on about I was right in the first place, the DP meter 5. Oh, where's me blooming thing gone now? There it is. So if I get rid of that, so here we got the loudness meter. So it's the DP meter 5 by TBProAudio. This is a great loudness meter. Maybe have a look at this. It's free. TBProAudio.de, I think the website is, but it's the DP meter 5. This is a great loudness meter, and then kind of compare your tracks against others. If you can get some tracks as references, then put them into the DAW. Put this on your master. So here I've got it on the master output in the post section, and then run your reference tracks, and then look at the loudness of your reference tracks, and then compare that against your track. I've done some videos about referencing and mastering, so have a look at those on the Mastering in the Box channel. Have a look. You can put them in. There's a great option somewhere around here. It is, I think it might be in here, solo follow selection. So if you go into here, click solo follow selection, and then if I was to do, come out of that for a second. This is a great tip for anyone who wants to do referencing. Just for the sake of this, I'm just going to duplicate track complete, just so we've got a separate source here. But if I then click here solo, it automatically mutes the other track. So you could put your track here, reference track here, and then click between them, then solos those, so you haven't got two tracks going at the same time. So that's something you could try as well. Yeah, lots of different things to try, but hopefully that's kind of given you some good ideas to start with. Okay, let's have a go. So let's go back then. So yeah, I don't really want to do too much more because I think we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, and I'll be honest, my ears are taking a bit of a battery with all this saturation. I think this is a great plugin. And once again, going back to the way you use this plugin and how you think about it in a mastering context. I would always say, whenever you are mastering anything, you always want to do everything with some intention. So when I see people and they say, well, my mastering chain consists of 8-10 plugins, my first reaction is, why? Because you don't want to just have a mastering chain for the sake of having a mastering chain. Be very intentional with what you are doing. And I think this can be fantastic, like we did earlier on. If you was to use this in conjunction with the splitter tool, then if you have got a lot of high-end frequencies on the sides, and if the saturation starts to really kind of emphasize a lot of the sibilant frequencies, then maybe do some mid processing and put this on the mono frequencies. I think that's great, because you're then going to start to saturate obviously the vocals, and kind of give some more energy and oomph to snare, kick, bass, but you're not adding that harmonic distortion or saturation to a lot of the high end frequencies. So that works really, really well. I think you've got to consider what you are trying to excite in terms of, think about your frequencies. So if you want to get some more excitement in the low end, overall think about your warm character, your crisp character more for the high end, and your clean as more of a general overall. The classic, I would like to play around with that a little bit more, because obviously you can't then start to, if you put it in classic mode, you can't then boost. You can boost the odd harmonics, but you can't do any of the stages or the even harmonics or the fluctuation. I like this ceiling. I think that's great. So obviously that is going to help when it comes to your final limiter. So you're not going to start putting loads of signal onto the limiter and start to really stress the limiter. I think that's a great option. I also like this here. I think, once again, we spoke about the splitter, but thinking about it, this here channel mode, I think that's going to do the job for you. Play around with it. I think that would be great. If it does do what I think it says it's going to do, we'll have a bit of a, let's have a bit of a play around with this now, and we can just do that. Okay, let's take this to, let's really kind of push it. So let's go to 14 plus 14 minus. Okay, give or take. Oh, that's right. Okay. So that could actually, that could be great. So that to me kind of does exactly what the splitter is going to do. So sometimes this is going to be your monitoring section here then. So obviously that kind of makes sense here, because you've got the input, your output. You can change your VU meters, whether they're showing the input, output, the calibration, mono, stereo, and then you can then solo or monitor mode for the stereo, left, right, mid, sides. This is then going to apply the saturation to the so saturation, stereo placement, stereo, left, right, mid, side. So obviously you can do this in any, in any single format. You wouldn't need the splitter in this particular circumstance. You could use this, therefore this would be great for any DAWs. If you're not a Studio One user, then you can also do this in mid-side mode as well, which is, I think, is fantastic. What I was doing there is just really kind of just swapping between the warm and the crisp, and then just changing between the mid and the sides to really just kind of see if it's being affected or not. So I think that is a fantastic touch. I think that makes it just so much more versatile. So my first impressions. This is a first impressions video. I think this is great. I do think you can kind of overdo it, but I think just really messing around here with the input and output, so you're not kind of really kind of saturating too much. And then I love to say, once again, you've got the clip ceiling, the oversample I think is a great touch. To find a saturator that lets you monitor all of the different frequency ranges, as well as putting the channel mode in there. I don't know, maybe if someone can think of one, let us know in the comments section. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Most saturation plugins that I know of they're just a stereo saturation tool. So if you do know of some, and certainly some not only that let you change the channel but also let you monitor, let us know in the chat, because it would be great to know what they are. But I think this is a great touch. The character, once again, I think it's personally, I think the clean or the classic are my favourites. I think if you really want to, if I was to really focus more on the low end, as if I wanted to saturate the low end or the high end a little bit more, then maybe I'd think about doing it in that kind of mid-side functionality. So if I really wanted to focus on the low end, if I know that a lot of the low end is in the mid frequencies, then maybe I'd do it in the mid-side mode rather than choosing the warm or crisp. For me, it kind of hypes it too much. Whereas if you want to really you want to focus it without hyping, that's certainly kind of the way that I would look at it. Be interesting to play around with the stages a little bit more. And the odd and even, I think this is where you can start getting crazy and it can kind of overdo it. If you really start to kind of put in a lot of the saturation drive, it's when you, certainly for mastering context, I think you can overdo it. But the stages, I like the idea of having those different flavours as well as the character. So I think that's a good part as well. I think we all need to kind of just take a step back as well and just think, hang on, this is free. This plugin is free. It's not costing anything. So I think this is a great addition. And like I think we've proved, you can get some really saturated tones, but I think you can get some really subtle tones as well. So this could well be the new saturation tool for my toolkit. I don't use saturation a lot, and I think we'd need to once again think about what kind of source we're using it on, because if you've got an already saturated track, you don't want to kind of really start to overdo things and make the track all crispy and lifeless and just a little bit meh. So just think about what you're using it on, but I think this could be my next, certainly my go-to from now on. I certainly want to play around with it a little bit more anyway. So that is the GSatPlus. Okay, what I want to do now, let's have a quick go back to OBS now, and then I want to, and let's see if anyone's got any questions, and let's do a bit of question time if anyone's got any questions at all. Just while I've got you guys here, and just while I'm waiting to see if there's any more questions that come through, anyone who's not seen the IK Multimedia group buy, I left some links in the chat. But for those who don't know, the group buy is fantastic. So the more people that enter, the more plugins you get. And currently there are 4,340 participants in the group buy. So what does that mean? It means when you buy one plugin in the qualifying of the qualifying plugins, you get 4 plugins free. And you can see here 660 participants needed to get 5 free products. So it is great. Some of these plugins are fantastic. So it's not just all about mixing mastering. If you want to get the amplitude for their amp sims, or if you want to get their mixing and mastering, or you've got the mix box, which is like their virtual channel strip, any virtual instruments they've got, all of these are all part of the group buy. And like I say, it works where you buy one plugin and then you get X amount free based on the participants that enter. The only caveat is the free plugins that you get must be, the free plugins can't be worth more than the plugin that you buy. So for instance, if I buy Amplitude 5 for €199, then every free plugin that I get must be €199 or less. So let's, for example, say I can then get Amplitude 5 and T-Rex 5, but I can't get T-Rex 5 Deluxe because obviously it's worth more than Amplitude 5. But you know, you are getting a load of free plugins here. And if you think about a lot of the T-Rex processors, they're around about the €100 mark. This is like a lot of these. This is the compressor is one of their new ones, and that's 129. Obviously the Leslie, but you look at all of these down here, all 99. So there's a lot of scope there. So if you're interested in joining the group buy, I'm certainly going to be joining the group buy. I haven't done it yet just because I'm waiting for some funds to clear, but I certainly will be doing it because there's lots of different plugins that I think would really benefit a lot of people. So if you're interested, have a look in the chat. There's links in there. They are affiliate links. But it's not going to inflate the cost to you. So an affiliate link effectively is just where I will earn a small commission that goes towards supporting the channel, but it does not inflate the cost to you. Okay. Congrats on over 1,000 subs on YouTube. Thanks, Tim. It's going well. I've got lots of different things lined up. Yeah, it is going well. I've got so much that I want to do. Like I say, for anyone who didn't catch it earlier on, I'm working on a mini series all around mastering in Studio One 5. I've done a video on mastering in Studio One 5, which was very much an overview, and that was about a year ago, and it's by far my most popular video. And what I want to do is do just a short mini series breaking it down a little bit further. So to kind of give you an idea, if I can quickly go back to the door capture mode, and let's quickly transition there, minimize that. So one of the things that we're going to be going through is I'll be showing you how to basically set up or how I set up the song page. So it's going to be a bit of a mix between the song page and the project page. And the reason is because first and foremost, that's how I use Studio One, and secondly, it's then going to help people who have got the artist version as well as the professional version. The one thing you won't be able to do in the artist version, obviously, is then go to the project page. So at the end of the series, I'll be showing you how I use the project page. So do all things like metadata and file exporting, fades, things like that. But we're certainly going to go through setting up the song page, including some of my custom macros. So when you start to import all of your songs into the song page, there are some custom macros which I will show you how to set up, so you can get it all set up hunky-dory, just in literally a couple of clicks of a button, just to make it really simple and easy. And then we'll go through the way that I look at the template, how I work the template, and then the hierarchy of some of the plugin structure. So the great thing about Studio One is we've got the inserts here, but we've also got event effects. So if I wanted to say, for example, I wanted to apply a particular plugin just to this beginning part of the song, I could double click here, I could split this here as an event, and I can then click and then basically add an event down here. Now if I just scroll down here, we've got the event effects here, and if I enable event effects, drag this up, then I can add inserts on that event only. So it will only apply to this part of the song and not this part. So it's kind of like the way I would classify the hierarchy. So this is on the event. So we've got two events here. This is on the track, one track. And then this is your master, which is going to apply to all tracks in the song page. So that's the way we'll go through all those different bits, and then we'll look at the processing. So look at the stock plugins and how we can use the stock plugins to master our tracks inside of Studio One. I'm once again going to focus on stock plugins, so it's going to really help those who've got the artist version as well as the professional version. And then we're going to go into the last bit around the project page. So obviously you won't be able to use the project page in artist, but you can in professional. And then how we can transport or transfer all of our songs into the project page, all the metadata, how we can export the files, and if you even want to start creating a single song file, say for instance if you wanted to create a track for vinyl and just do one complete single track, I can show you how to do that as well. So lots of things lined up for that. Yeah, it's just so much to go through. And yeah, I'm loving it. And it's great to see. The thing I love about a lot, to be fair, it's not just Studio One, but the PreSonus I love the Presonus community. I think that's great, and it's great for the likes of Tim, who, you know, it's good to see that your channel is growing at a rate of knots, and like to see yourself and obviously Johnny Lipsham and Johnny Gibe and some of the others, and it's just a great community, and that's really what I love. Some DAW communities can be a little bit snotty. Presonus is not like that. I don't really find that. You get the few on Facebook, but more often than not, there's so many people there who are willing to help, and yeah, I just love it. I just love being part of it. And if anyone joins any of the like the what do you call them, the Studio One live streams, they happen all over the world every month. They are great communities to be part of. Yeah, it really is. It is great, and it's you know, even if you want to stay up till stupid o'clock in the morning, like I've done on a few occasions, and watch, you know, I've been known to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning watching Tim's live streams after having had quite a few beers. It's great, you know. That's the thing. There's always something for someone in the Presonus world. Like I say, you've got Tim that does some great stuff on mixing and recording. You've got Max Conye. I love watching his channel because he does so much regards to music creation, songwriting. It's all electronic based, and even though I'm not an electronic based musician, I just find what he does in his channel, I just find it's mesmerising. And then obviously you've got people like you know, got people like Marcus and Johnny, and the two Johnnies, Johnny Lipson and Johnny Gibe. They do their, I can't remember what they are. I think it was their Sunday night program. It was all about kind of like song breakdowns, songwriting simplified, I think it was called. That's great as well. Yeah, it's. I was up till this Saturday morning. I was up till 2:30 as well. Michael done his Zoom call after Johnny's video, and I think I'd had quite a few beers by that point as well. So I was, needless to say, later on Saturday morning I had a fair bit of a headache. So yeah, but no, I absolutely love it. I love doing this. I've got so much more lined up around using Studio One and so many different fantastic mastering videos. The next few weeks are going to be the Presonus Studio One kind of focus, but I'm working on a few things around the studio as well, so that's going to be really exciting. Hopefully, I've reached out to some people. I won't say too much. I've reached out to a company regarding acoustic treatment and looking at doing some form of guidance for building your own home studio and the importance of acoustic treatment. And it's not just actually having acoustic treatment, it's where you place it. So that's going to be really, really interesting. I've just done the Olo Audio S4X review. These are great. These have been with me for about 6 months now. I love these. So check that video out. Yeah, there's loads. I'm going to be doing one probably in the next live stream, looking at my new computer setup, because I'm getting a whole new computer, so you won't be hearing the fans on my computer taking off every 2 minutes. Yeah, all good fun, and I absolutely love it. Give it the last few more minutes before I call it day, because it's getting it's 25 to 10 here. But if anyone's got any questions, drop me a note in the chat. If anyone does want to support the channel, then there are some links in the chat too for buymeacoffee.com. Once again, it's just, you know, any support that we get is all going back into the channel, and it's all very much appreciated. Obviously, there's gear and things that needs to be, you know, that I want to pay for, and I certainly don't expect, you know, I'm not sitting there expecting any donations at all. But if anyone does want to support the channel, there is a link in the description for buymeacoffee.com if you want to buy me a coffee. Or if you say, once again, the IK Multimedia, if you want to join the group buy, it's not inflating the cost to you, so it's the same cost to you, but I will earn a small commission if you do so. So that small commission will once again go towards supporting the channel. So it's a bit of a win-win, where you get a great product, you get to join the group buy, you get the free plugins, and I'll get a little commission off the back of it as well. So that's any support there will be greatly appreciated. And let me, yeah, one thing I was going to say, what I always say this on the live streams, I'm really very much looking for new material. So if anyone's got any material they want mastering, please, please, please get in touch. Smudge at masteringitb.com. Let me know, because once again, it's the challenge with getting material is not all of the clients are willing to, certainly at certain stages, not willing to let me use their material. Thanks, Tim. Great to hear from you, and yeah, see you soon. Keep in touch, mate. But some of the clients aren't necessarily willing at certain stages to let me use the material, which is fair enough, depending on when they're releasing it. And using the Cambridge Music Technology website, it's not designed for this purpose. Whilst the agreement is used for educational use, it's not really designed for educational use on YouTube, because if you start to use some of those tracks that have been published or released, then the record labels start adding copyright strikes against the material, even though they are educational use, even though that I'm not actually earning any money from it. They still do earn copyright strikes, so I can't really use the Cambridge Music Technology stuff either, because it's not really designed for that. So if you've got any songs that you want mastered, get in touch. Smudge at masteringitb.com. Let's have a chat. As I say, you know, let's come to some kind of agreement. I'm not expecting to, you know, if you want your song to be featured on the channel, I'm not, you know, certainly not going to start be expecting to be, you know, charging loads of money for it. So let's see if I can help you out. You can help me out by providing me some material. I can help you out with mastering your tracks. And let's get them ready for release for you, and we'll have some more content to be used on the channel as well. So if you've got any tracks, then get in touch. Smudge at masteringitb.com. Okay. Well, there's no more questions coming through at the moment. I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining in. It's been great. I know this was a bit of an impromptu one. I really wanted to kind of cover this plugin. I love the TBProAudio stuff, so check them out. TBProAudio.de. They really do produce some great plugins. The ABLM, if you want a good plugin for the ABLM, is very much helping around referencing, but not referencing in the conventional sense against one track against the other. It's going to help you reference for your pre and post processing. So for example, you can have a copy before your plugins, have a copy after your plugins, and it will volume match automatically for you. So you're only hearing what the sonic changes are, except for the volume difference. So you're not therefore then going to be deceived by the fact that the volume difference is, you know, maybe a few dBs out. So that is a great plugin, ABLM, and there's a second version of that. That's a great one. Highly recommend that one. And the DP Meter 5, that's a great free loudness meter. I'm going to check out the paid for version. I really, really like the look of that, and I also want to check out some of their limiters as well. So they're a great great company, very responsive. If you've got any queries at all, get in touch with them, because they will respond extremely quickly. I had a license issue once, and I sent them a message and had a response back within 25 minutes with a copy of my license. That is, you know, it was just amazing. No quibbles, no hassle. They just got back in touch really, really quickly. So check them out, TBProAudio. Yeah, and I say that's it for today's live stream. Thank you once again for everyone who's watched and participated. There'll be a new video coming out next week, which is going to be the start of the Mastering in Studio 1.5 series. And yeah, all that's left for me to say is I hope you all keep safe and well, and I'll see you guys in the next video coming real soon.